Okay. Chapter 1 of the Indian Contract Act is deals with the formations of the contract. So first of all, before start the formation of contract, we want to know that the sign-offs under this chapter. Under this chapter, we will read about the certain points that are agreement and contract, proposal or offer, essentials of offer, acceptance, essentials of the valid acceptance, revocations of offer and acceptance, standard form contracts, and promissory estoppel. So prima facie we want to know that the what is the contract. Contract means an agreement which is enforceable by law. That is called the contract. We already read under the bare portions of the Indian Contract Act. Now the point is that what does consist of the agreement? An agreement consists of the reciprocal promises between the two parties and the promiser and the promisee. Now the next point, that in case of the contract, each party is legally bound by the promise which is made by him. Suppose A is the person and B is another person. So A is legally bound by the promise which A is made to B. Now, a contract or an obligation to perform a promise which may arise in the following ways. There are three ways. One, an agreement on the contract. Two, a by standard form of contract, and last part is that promissory estoppel. Now the first point talks about the agreement and the contract. What is the agreement and what is the contract? The most common way of making a contract is through an agreement. Means the contract can be made through an agreement. This is the common way. And the two parties may agree to something to do through the mutual negotiation. Mind it, if there is not mutual negotiations between the two parties, then that agreement would not be enforceable by law. So when one party makes an offer and the other party accepts the same, then there arise any contract and which may be enforceable by law, and that is terms as the contract. Now the next point, that standard form of contract. Standard form of contract in the modern age, some persons, institutions or establishments such as railways, insurance companies, banks or manufacturers of the various goods, etc. So may have entered into very large number of the contracts with a thousand of pupils. Okay, so they cannot possible negotiate now individually. It's not a possible with the persons with whom the contracts are to be made. Contracts with pre-drafted the matters generally prepared by the one party and other has to agree to it. Okay, and as a general rule, such standard form of contracts as the valid as those they enter through such due negotiations, and the different situations and problems arising in the contract have been discussed thereafter. Suppose I am the company of the Amul. Okay, I am the manager, I am the director of such company, and I am going to prepare a documents for, or we can say that offer, like if any person wants to join, so wants to work in this company, then he has to qualify this criteria. Suppose I am giving the proposal to the thousand of the people. The persons who are qualified for this category, or the persons who want to job in this company, they can agree with such terms and conditions. When he agreed with such terms and conditions, then they enter, that person entered into the contract with me. Okay, and it is not possible to to contact with the individuals one. It's not a possible that to negotiate individually one, because there is thousands of the people who wants to getting the jobs, who wants to get the jobs in this company. Okay, and that is called as a standard form of contract. Now the next point, that promissory estoppel. Sometimes there may be no agreement or the contract in the strict sense of the term, but a person making a promise may become the bound because of the applications of the equitable doctrine of estoppel. So these are three criteria. These are the creating contractual obligations, and that ones are the discussed below one by one in details. Now the next point, agreement and contract. So before start this point, we already know that what is the contract and what is the agreement. Section 2H of the Indian Contract Act 1872, which defines the term the contract, and it says that an agreement which is enforceable by law, that is called the contract. So all agreements are not the enforceable by law, and therefore all the agreements are not the contracts. Some agreement may be enforceable by law and others not. So for example, an agreement to sell a radio set may be the contract, but an agreement to go to see a movie may be a mere agreement, but which is not enforceable by law. Means the agreement which is enforceable by law, that will be treated as the contract. Thus, all the agreements are made not contract. Only those agreements which are satisfy the essentials mentions under section 10 of the Indian Contract Act then become the contracts. However, all the agreements are the agreements. All the contracts are the agreement. Means minded, we should bear in mind that all agreements are not contract, because all agreements are not enforceable by law. But all the contracts are the agreements, because to make a contract there is a common way, that is the agreement between the two parties, and the agreement which are not fulfill the essential conditions, essential element which are mentioned under section 10 of the Indian Contract Act, then that agreement will not be declared as a contract and that agreement will not be enforceable by law. Take an example. Suppose I agree with B that I want to sell a radio to B, and if B agree with it, then that is the contract. If B agree with me, then that is enforceable by law. If there is any damage of my radio set, then I can file a suit against the B. Or if he lost my radio set, then I can file a suit against the B for loss of my radio set. But if A and B just mere agree that they want to go to the movie, then that is the mere agreement and it is not enforceable by law, which is mentioned under section 2H of the Indian Contract Act 1872. So in this way we can get the one things that all the agreements are not the contract, but all the contracts are agreement. Now there is a one conception which is mentioned in this point, that essentials elements, which is mentioned section 10 of the Indian Contract. Now I am going to discuss about the section 10 of the Indian Contract Act 1872. What are the mentions in this contract? Under chapter 2, section 10 has been mentioned, and the headlines of the section 10 of the Indian Contract Act, it says that what agreements are the contract. So before start this bare provisions, I want to know that was the meaning of the sections. The meaning of the sections is that it provides the essentials elements which are the important elements to make a contract. So all the agreements are the contracts if they are made, means all the agreements are treated as a contract. First of all, we should know that all the agreements are not contract, because all the agreements are not enforceable by law. It means the agreements which will be enforceable by law, that agreements which are made by 1. Free consent of the parties, 2. The parties who are competent to the contract, 3. Or for the lawful considerations, and the 5 with the lawful object, and not thereby expressly declared, and which is not expressly declared as it to be heard. Sorry. Nothing here in content shall affect any law in force in India, and not hereby expressly repealed, by which any contract is required to be made in writings or in the presence of the witnesses, or any law relating to the registrations of the documents. So these are the provisions of this mentions under section 10 of the Indian Contract Act. So what does the meaning? The first para of the sections is talks about that all the agreement of other contract. Which agreements are treated as a contract? All the agreement if they are made by the free consent. Number 1, free consent of the parties. Number 2, the parties which are competent to the contract. And number 3, lawful considerations and lawful object. Lawful considerations and the lawful object. So last one is that it is not expressly declared to be what. These are the criteria which are mentioned under section 10. Okay. Next point is that agreement. What is the agreement? Agreement, the definitions of the agreement has been mentioned under section 2E. It says that every promise and every set of promises, every promise and every set of promises which are forming the considerations for each other, then that is known as an agreement. In an agreement, there is a promise from both sides. For a take an example, suppose A promises to deliver his watch to B, and in return B also promises to pay a sum of money to A, like rupees 2000. So this is said to be an agreement between A and B. A promise is a result of the offer or proposal by one person who gives the proposals and is accepted by the other persons. Take an example. When A makes a proposal to sell his watch to B for rupees 2000 and B accepts his proposal, and that results a promise between the two persons, and section 2B of the Indian Contract Act, it defines a promise. 2B says a promise means when a person to whom the proposal is made signifies his assent thereto and the proposal is said to be accepted. Suppose one person to whom the proposal is made, he signifies his assent thereto, okay, and the proposal is said to be accepted. When he signifies the assent thereto, then that is known as that is to be treated the proposal is accepted. A proposal, when it accepts, then it becomes a promise. Thus, when there is a proposal from one side and acceptance of that proposal by the other side, then it results a promise. So this promise forms the two persons, and the one is known as an agreement. So it has been noted here that an agreement which is enforceable by law, that is known as the contract. So all such agreements which satisfy the conditions which are mentioned in the section 10, then that is known as a contract. And section 10 says that, what does section 10 says? Oh, section 10 says that all the agreements are the contract if they are made, 1, by free consent of the parties, 2, the parties who are competent to contract, 3, for lawful considerations and lawful object, 4, not hereby expressly declared as a fact. So the essentials which is needed for the valid contract, that are the, if I split the sections, and I am getting 5 points under these portions. First one, that in agreement between the two parties, that is agreement is the result of the proposal or an offer by one party which is followed its acceptance by the other party. And number 2, the agreement should be between the parties who are competent to the contract. And number 3, there should be a lawful considerations and lawful object in respect of the agreement. And number 4, there should be the free consent of the parties and which they enter into the contract, into the agreement. And last point is that the agreement must not be one which has been expressly declared to be void. Now I am going to the first point, that is the contract. So from the point of view of the legality, there are different types of agreement. One by one I will discuss them. First point is that contract. Section 2H of the Act, contract is an agreement which is enforceable by law. It is an agreement or set of promises which is giving rise to the obligations and which can be enforced or are recognized by law. That it has been noted here that an agreement which becomes a contract, it has to satisfy all the essentials of the valid contract which are mentioned in the section 10. Clear? Next point, agreement. Void agreement which mentions under section 2